Ladies and gentlemen, let's get back to our plenary session. I know that we all have things to talk about during the break, and it's a very good thing that we do have a discussion going on. But let's get back to our plenary session. And in the morning session, we focused more on the things that were happening within those 10 years of Lithuania being a donor country. And this session is more oriented on the future perspective and the challenges for Lithuanian NGOs. So we will have 3 presentations again. So if you would like to ask something or make some remarks, please do not forget about them till the end of the last presentation, when we will have the session for questions. So I would like to invite Mr. Julius Norvila, the board member of Association Lidea. He's also manager of the Humana People to People, and he will present the future of Lithuanian NGOs, the role, problems, and challenges after the presidency project. So, Mr. Julius, the floor is yours.
Hello once again to all the participants. I really thank that you devoted time for us and that you take part in this conference. I will be speaking in Lithuanian language. The title is in English because the program was formed in English and disseminated in English, but as our moderator said, I should talk about NGOs in a more specific way, and in particular as how this is associated with the presidency to the EU Council project, and what could we expect after the project is completed. And the project, as in the beginning our colleague Mrs. Pankauskienė mentioned, the key goal of the project has been formulated as to strengthen NGOs of Lithuania, also to strengthen their contribution to the policy of development cooperation with respect to formal and governmental support through the European programs, and also during the presidency period. So this is how the goal has been formulated, and you could read it. Now I would like to tell you a little bit about the development and progress of NGOs, the development and cooperation. Lithuanian NGOs, starting from maybe from 2002 and 2003, when international funds, many organizations were acting, which promoted development of the civil society in Lithuania. So many NGOs, they acted, they operated, as we would say at that time, across the borders, so let's say in Belarus and Kaliningrad Oblast, and also in other ex-Soviet Union countries, in the countries of the Caucasus, Ukraine and Moldova. And when it started, the contours of the membership of Lithuania started to be clear, it became clear that when Lithuania became the member state of the EU, that Lithuania would become a donor country, and that also Lithuanian civil society will be engaged in that activity. NGOs will be engaged. And those Lithuanian NGOs started getting invitations for trainings, for support. They were included in the activities of the European NGOs, also in the activity of the organization Concord, And as Mrs. Sutrap mentioned, the project Trialog was set up in order to strengthen Lithuanian NGOs so that they are involved, engaged in that common, that general EU developmental cooperation policy and activities. Besides, here also different foreign embassies contributed to the process a lot, and also international organizations contributed as well. What was more conspicuous dating back to those times, that such institutions like the European Commission had no special tools to strengthen NGOs of the new member states in the area of developmental cooperation. Similarly, also the things were in Lithuania. There were no special tools or measures to strengthen Lithuanian NGOs in the area of development cooperation. No any such measures. There was just one example. The Ministry of Foreign Affairs of the German Federation had a program GLEN, when volunteers are dispatched, and the program was developed in such a way in order to include Lithuanian organizations, institutions gradually. And until the German Federation supported this project, everything went well. But when support was finished, that program also finished. I just wanted to draw attention to the fact that Lithuanian NGOs at that time received most assistance from the NGO sector operating in the EU or on the level of the EU or from the Confederation Concord. In such a situation, Lithuanian, and as you know, Lithuania entered the EU in 2004. And for several years, we discussed a lot and considered whether we need to establish a network of NGOs, to set up a bureau, an office, which would represent, namely, that development cooperation NGOs working in that area, and only in 2007, such a network or a platform was set up. So we, among those new member states, were the last who formalized that network. In 2012, Lithuanian NGOs became a member of Concord, but we entered Concord also quite originally, in a Lithuanian style, as a Lithuanian umbrella. LU means Lithuanian umbrella. And two associations are included in it. DARE with 11 member organizations and National Development Cooperation Organization Platform, which has 19 member organizations. With the approachment of the presidency period, NGOs prepared a project for the European Commission. And Lithuanian NGOs, the platform also developed a joint project which was called Quality Partnership for Development, EU Presidency for the Lithuanian EU Presidency 2013. The main goals, they have been already mentioned by Daiva Penkauskienė, but I would just like to remind you, and what has been mentioned by the representative of the Ministry of Foreign Affairs, by Mr. Jankūnas, namely that before the start of the presidency in May, the Parliament, Seimas, adopted the law on the development cooperation and humanitarian aid of the Republic of Lithuania. That law In fact, it repeats the provisions of the former government, which would be renewed every several years. But the amendment, the important amendment, is that from governmental provisions, the document was raised up to the level of the law. So here we can see that even when the government changes and provisions change, that general development cooperation strategy is not going to change, which is a very important achievement of sustainability. And the law was going to set up a National Development Cooperation Commission, and that commission is a combination of different institutions, of different representatives, governmental, non-governmental, and all in all 22 members. So the platform and the idea is also represented in that commission. The law also included the following paragraph, that the civil society, including non-governmental organizations, that takes part in planning and implementing a policy of developmental cooperation. Another paragraph, which is also very important, speaking about the official support of Lithuania, and the law formulates that taking into account, of course, financial possibilities of the state, Lithuania will seek increases official support to the development. And in 2013, it was 0.11% of the general national income. And the slash is 0.33, so our commitments are by 3 times bigger, 0.33, because we were available to allocate 0.11. And that number was never cancelled, was never changed. It is still valid, I mean 0.33, and there is a certain opposition, a conflict, as if we have obligations, but the fulfillment of those obligations is only by 1/3. So Lithuania is increasing consistently its support to development cooperation, and that support will grow. But how? In what conditions? In what terms? That has not been determined yet. It's not clear. And also, when I showed you the previous slide concerning the civil society and participation also of governmental institutions in forming and implementing the policy of development cooperation. On the national level, things are quite good, also good on the regulatory level, but now we have to go down to the level of implementation. So how could NGOs come on and participate and work? So when and how will the support be increased? The question mark. Now, we are all here at the conference, marking in a way the end of the project. So what are the outcomes of this project? What are the results? What did we learn of it? Of course, in order to answer, we would need to carry out a survey, maybe a kind of investigation. But I'll just try generally mention some important moments which should be taken into consideration while thinking about the future of NGOs and the future of the networks. Now, what has been done outside? What did we do together with Lithuanian society and other institutions? So mostly awareness raising, information, an increase of support to development and cooperation, trainings, cinema festivals, film festivals were organized, other events, and representation at the institutions was ensured, as well as consultation, both networks of both NGOs, also Lithuania, were very active in submitting proposals at the time of the consideration of the law, and also national provisions of the National Commission for the Development of Cooperation were formulated. When in the presidency project the budget is better and more people are employed, so in general there are bigger human resources. So at that time representation was better involvement in the activity of the European Confederation Concord. Now inside, domestically, so what did the members, organizations of both networks receive? So while having employees of the Bureau, we could inform better organizations members. And we organized trainings and organizational capacities were improved. Also, proposals were formulated for bigger support to global education in order to ensure that support. And that initiative within the Ministry of Foreign Affairs, within the Department of Development Cooperation, was adopted. And then in the next stage, the department, in his own turn, organized an interinstitutional meeting concerning bigger support to global education. And that was quite a big, important step of thinking about the global education and entering of that education into our life, and the informal, non-formal education. And what's next? The project is approaching the end. The agreement with employees will soon finish. And so what's next? What are the opportunities and challenges of the NGO network? What are they? The first challenge is to maintain the Bureau and employees, to keep them. When we have a Bureau, our office, then we are able to have the efficient staffing possibility. It is very important to have efficient employees, and to find them, to train them is a big challenge, and to retain them. The second challenge, while having good, competent workers, it is necessary to involve organizations members into the purposeful and concentrated activity, to mobilize them. As I mentioned before, the initiative, for example, to submit proposals concerning support to global education. And now outside. This is from the point of view of the inside activities. Now outside activities. So when we have a presidency project, we have bigger opportunities, budget and human resources, and then very good active partnerships are established with the public sector, with state institutions. And when the project is approaching the end, then it is very important that those partnerships do not break, do not disappear, and that they get over to another level. And here it is important to find resources to ensure support in order the office can continue operating and continue the works that have been started, so that we do not return back to that previous level, low level, when many works are done ad hoc, on the ad hoc basis, and the people voluntarily leaving their main jobs participate in particularly important activities like formation of the policy or representation of interests or preparation of different proposals concerning the legal acts and regulations, comments, proposals. also observation of the official support for the developmental cooperation. Now, to maintain the office and its employees, also included another possibility to look for support from business based on the programs of social responsibility of those companies. Despite the economical situation, I'm sure that the concept of the social responsibility has instilled itself in the community of business of the Republic of Lithuania. And here, I see big opportunities for the NGOs to formulate meaningful proposals to business and to look for support from them. Another important question is our relationships, our cooperation, communication with the Ministry of Foreign Affairs. And of course, here in the first place, we have the Department of Developmental Cooperation. And what we, as NGOs, could offer and what we would wish to receive from this department, from the Ministry of Foreign Affairs. We have to know. I'm sorry, you have to finish. Time expires. Okay, try to do my best. The law provides a possibility to participate in the formation and implementation of the policy via appropriate tools. You just have to be active. And then after the project is finished, it would be important not only to account formally, but also to summarize the assess results achieved, challenges, and to prepare a meaningful strategy of the activity after 2015. The strategy would involve not only general descriptions, but also a detailed plan, detailed, concrete, specific offers. I finished. Thank you. I mentioned just general things, but if there are any comments or specific questions, I would be very pleased to answer.
Growth of Lithuanian NGO and insight on future perspectives. And since we have a very tight schedule, I would like to ask the next presenters to try to respect the timetable we have. And now I would like to ask Ms. Marta Chibayevaite, Executive Director of National Non-Government Development Cooperation Organizational Platform, to present the NGO participation in post-2015 agenda framing process. So, Marta, please, the floor is yours.
Good morning, everybody. I'm very pleased today to address you all, and thank you for introducing me. But before I'll tell a couple of words about myself, who I am. In the picture, you actually see two ladies. It's a mother and daughter from Togo, and the picture has been taken by the Lithuanian traveler traveling there. We really like this picture, and we really like this image. Therefore, quite often we're using it, but I just wanted to tell you that we actually know where these people are coming from and their stories. So, my name is Marta Chibayevaite, and I represent the Lithuanian NGDO platform, which Julius has been mentioning quite a lot during his presentation. And the network represents 19 non-governmental Lithuanian organizations that work in a very diverse fields, from human rights and democracy promotion, mental health perspectives, HIV, children's rights, women's rights, and so on. And well, today I'm talking about post-2015 agenda, but before I actually start doing that, I would like to know how much you actually know about it and how deep I should go into it. So, well, the people that know what is post-2015 agenda, what's that? Could you please raise your hand so that basically I could see? Okay, half, great. The people that actually, whose organizations are involved in post-2015 agenda elaborations, could you please raise your hands? Okay, there are fewer. Okay, well, so I'll try to, well, I can't really promise that I will explain, you know, very thoroughly the very complex process, what I believe post-2015 agenda is, for those who do not really know that. But I think we have lunch break, and most probably you've seen the people around here that are actually involved in it. So it's also a chance to come closer to us and also to discuss with us about that. But so my aim is basically to present and give some ideas of what we're doing here in Lithuania, but also to hear from you, especially from the ones who are involved, what you do, how you unite other organizations in your efforts for really transformative post-2015 agenda. Maybe also for us to take as a good practice example what we could also learn for ourselves. Okay, so for the ones who do not really know much about post-2015 agenda, I still hope that you actually have seen this iconic image of Millennium Development Goals. Because if you start talking about post-2015 agenda, Millennium Development Goals is the starting point. So Millennium Development Goals were the 8 global development goals agreed in 2000, which in 15 years aimed at poverty eradication, addressing 8 problem areas such as hunger, poverty, health, and so on. All of the targets, except for the 8th one, which was aimed at Global Partnership for Development, applied just to developing countries. So the post-2015 agenda is basically the process of formulating and defining a new global development agenda, a new set of goals. But I don't really like to call it a new set of goals, but a new global development agenda that should replace the Millennium Development Goals that are set to expire in the year of 2015. Well, Millennium Development Goals are prized for their mobilization success because they really raised the awareness of the public, the private sector, and the politicians, and rallied for great support all around the world. They also contributed to raising the awareness and an increase of aid. Of course, there are undoubtful achievements that because of the existence of the MDGs, like the reduction of poverty, number of hungry people was reduced, access to health, drinking water was improved. However, the process was not even, and as some note, some of the skeptics, and I actually even agree with them, that the targets achieved were because of the substantial achievements made by China. And the MDGs are rather criticized for their top-down approach because they were created by developed countries for the implementation of developing countries. Thus, there was lack of ownership by the developing countries. They excluded a lot of important issues like human rights, good governance, peace, and so on. And they clearly do not address the global challenges that we are facing today more than ever. The adverse effects of the climate change, the increasing inequality, and the list of MDGs imperfections, I think, could be endless. I think all of you could mention even more of those. However, MDGs provided actually a good case example for the global partnership, for the global mobilization, and for the action. And I think post-2015 agenda also provides that. But it also gives an opportunity for us to think a bit in the different terms of how we see the world post-2015. I'll just... Excuse me. So I think that with the unity and with the involvement of civil society and with involvement of non-governmental organizations, actually post-2015 agenda has really quite a few chances to be more participatory and more inclusive process, and actually to be much more actual than the Millennium Development Goals were and still are. Okay, so I just wanted to include a couple of logos, which for the ones who participate in post-2015 agenda formulations, you both most probably know those logos and those organizations. But as I mentioned previously, post-2015 process is a complex process happening on various levels, and it's a lot of intergovernmental negotiations happening on the UN level with expert groups, consultations with different stakeholders, and briefings and inputs and recommendations being fed into the process. And definitely I'm not here to provide an overview of this really rather complex process, but I just wanted to emphasize the civil society involvement. And you see the logos of few organizations that are involved in post-2015 agenda formulations, and there are many more of them. But I just wanted to show you beyond 2015, which the NGDO platform is part of it, or a global call to action against poverty. Beyond 2015 is a European campaign of organizations that is working to influence the European Union institutions to shape post-2015 agenda in a way that it reflects the civil society position, whereas Global Call to Action Against Poverty, the campaign which is more known as GCAP, aims to mobilize the citizens all around the world, that they're actually a strong push from below towards the politicians so that they actually implement the transformative agenda. And the process is organized really in a flotilla way, so there is no leading organization or whatsoever. Please, the fact that there are 3 logos, don't misunderstand that they are leading the process. It's not that way. But each organization and each network, which there are a lot of them, they are working in the thematic area they know the best. They work with the target groups they know the best. And they work with the access and the resources that they have. If you have an access to European Union institutions, you advocate with them, you lobby those. If you have the access to the UN agencies, you work and lobby with them. If you are a national platform as we are, you work with the national level institutions. Okay, but one of the issues that each of those organizations, or at least these 3 organizations that the logos are present here, there is one very common thing that they all say, and they call saying that with post-2015 agenda, business as usual is not possible. And what exactly does that mean? By saying that, the aim is actually to call the attention that the world is actually interlinked, and the way we act in our daily lives really affects the citizens in other parts of the world. And I'm really glad that a colleague from Ireland has already been mentioning that. So I know that we're really not alone in thinking in terms about development in transformative ways. And by saying business as usual is not possible, is also emphasizing that the development, which is based on economic growth, is failing. It produced a lot of mega-rich people, maybe not so many, but it produced more mega-rich people, yet left so many poor people behind, and it actually increased inequality. And all these campaigns, they say that for the post-2015 agenda to be successful and actually not to repeat the mistakes of the MDGs, the framework really has to be transformative. And it cannot be, like that this time the leaders of the world will agree on 10 goals that will be applicable to developing countries, and we are going to solve I would say, the current crisis in the global crisis in the world. This is I think, the acknowledgement and the common position of the civil society organizations involved in post-2015 agenda formulation. That's not going to work that way. So, well, there are a couple of reasons why to participate and why it's actually for us as Lithuanian NGOs. So one of the first reasons is the universality of the framework. And, the current discussions, it seems that the framework most probably is going to be applicable to all countries of the world. Therefore, it means that it will need to be implemented also here in Lithuania, also aimed at reduction of poverty, ensuring of human rights, also here. So I look at the member of the parliament present here, and I really hope that should this framework be universal, that really members of parliament will ensure that it's also implemented here. And it also said that, the development, with the changing discourse of development, and especially, with the financial crisis that swept the world, with the growing inequalities, with the adverse effects of climate change, pollution, various species, natural resources extinctions. Changes are happening not only in some faraway lands that we know as developing countries, they're also happening here. And the way we act in our daily lives, the way we produce, the way we consume, the way we trade, actually affects not only us here, but also affects the people and their rights in other countries of the world. And that we have to be conscious about, and we have to basically to work in a way that we minimize our adverse effects on the people that basically have nothing to do with us, right? Or, well, have to do with us in terms of how we connect in the world, but they are not guilty for the way that we would like to keep our comforts. And by keeping our comforts, we're actually contribute to violating their human rights. And just giving an example, the production of clothes, the way we produce clothes that really violates the human rights of many people in the developing countries. Anyway, anyhow, the last but not the least reason to engage is a public mobilization. And I don't know how you feel, but I have a feeling that it's always easier to follow the path that is already, we sort of know how it goes. And the practice says that the politicians will not act unless there is a strong push from the public and from the citizens demanding and saying, look, you have to do something about it. We are not okay with the way the things are going. Business as usual is not possible. So I really hope that the 2015, that is the year of the European Year on Development, will actually provide us such opportunities to talk about post-2015 agenda and actually really to push for the transformative changes. Because if we as members of the civil society, we are not pushing for that, I'm afraid nobody else is going to do that. So my time is actually going to an end, so I have a couple of more slides and very brief examples of how we try to engage. So we participate in post-2015 agenda by doing policy work, by coalition building here in Lithuania, and by awareness-raising activities. So the fact that we are part of Concord and that during the second semester of 2013, Lithuania held the presidency of the EU Council actually facilitate our involvement in post-2015 agenda formulation. And our policy work mostly evolves on two levels, on the European level and on the national level. So, as part of such campaign as like Beyond 2015, our voice is added to the joint pressure on the European Union institutions, whereas on the national level we continue engaging in dialogue with the relevant officers at the Ministry of Foreign Affairs, with the members of the Lithuanian Parliament by sending letters, recommendations, and also arranging meetings and briefings to actually channel the views of the civil society. And of course, as I told to you, I don't believe that only policy work could bring about the changes. So what we're trying to do right now, and I really hope that the next half of the year or a year to come will really strengthen our efforts in building the coalitions with different organizations here in Lithuania. And so far, I would say that we quite succeeded in building the coalitions with the environmental organizations and trying to align the two rather connected, I would say, processes of post-2015 agenda formulation and climate change talks. And well, finally, we do the awareness-raising campaigns. I'll just show you afterwards a couple of most recent examples. So, saving time, I wanted to show you the asks that we had during the Lithuanian EU presidency, but, well, it's basically, we were, for the Lithuanian EU presidency, we as the Lithuanian Non-Governmental Development Cooperation Organizations, we prepared so-called Presidency Manifesto, and post-2015 agenda was one of our priorities, in line with Beyond 2015 campaign. So we asked for, first of all, we asked for full achievement of the Millennium Development Goals and also for increase of official development assistance. But since the highlight of 2013 was United Nations General Assembly, we also asked the European Union institutions and also our national institutions to really represent and to really reflect and to really, I would say, fight for the post-2015 agenda that is transformative, that is based on human rights, that is actually prioritize the people and the planet instead of prioritizing the economic growth, that actually prioritize the economy that serves the people and not vice versa. that takes into consideration the natural resource extinction, the environmental change, the environmental challenges that we face, and that also emphasizes the common but differentiated responsibility between the so-called developed and developing countries. So I will not go through all those asks. If you are interested, I think you can approach me afterwards. And just the last but not least slide, it's just a couple of visual examples from the awareness-raising campaigns we were implementing during the last year. Then we were organizing film discussions, film screenings and discussions in 16 Lithuanian towns, talking about the international development, about the challenges that are being faced on the global level, and also talking with the people how these challenges are being reflected on the local level, so as to provide food for thought and a critical reflection of the citizens. So I see that my time is due. Really, thank you very much for the attention. And I really do hope that either we will have time during lunchtime or just after the presentations just to hear more about your engagements in post-2015 agenda. I think that we can learn quite a lot from each other. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Marta. And it's good to know that the voice of NGOs is heard and could be heard, but we have to make that stronger push, like you said, right? And the last but not least presentation, I would say from a bit different perspective, is from the Professor Edgūnas Račius from Vytautas Magnus University. And he will try to answer the question, does culture matter in development cooperation? And how does Lithuania's situation look like?
Thank you. I realize I only have 6 minutes before lunch, and we still have to have a Q&A session in between, so I have to really be brief. I know that whenever people promise to be brief, they are usually not. So I don't promise, although I do promise to myself to keep it short. I need to make a disclaimer here. Were it a academic event, I would have never spoken the way I will speak now, because I will be very normative in this audience. In an academic atmosphere, being normative doesn't pay off. You know, you do analyze situation and that's it. Now, I will do a bit of an analysis, which will be sort of personal, subjective, non-academic, definitely not scholarly, because I have my 6 students here who probably make half of the audience of those who don't speak but simply came. So I sort of need to make these disclaimers so that they know, oh, well, if professor does it this way, we might as well do it this way. No, don't do this at home. Don't do this at university, what I will be doing now. But I think this is an appropriate audience and place to be normativist. What do I mean by this? I will call for something. I will argue for something that I think isn't, well, I wish it was inevitable, but I think I would put it as urgent. So, culture. Now, of course, they will always have a question as to, you know, what is culture? What do we mean by culture? Some of you might mean going to opera. Then, you know, you do culture, where you either play or you dance, or you listen to those who play or watch those who dance. That's the whole culture. I don't care about it. So whatever. What I care about is how people live daily life. That is culture, or for me today, this is what I mean by culture. So when I ask, does culture matter? I don't mean, does opera matter? No, of course not. Culture is people live. But let me start from a bit further. And of course, during the break, the coffee break, we were discussing the terms, and we are in deep trouble in Lithuania and probably all over the world, because there's a mix-up of terms. You know, when we talk about, for example, global citizenship, there's this workshop or group in the afternoon. And what do we mean by global? And then whenever we translate into Lithuanian, we have really funny translations. Well, this is, you know, if you allow the linguists to do their job, which we shouldn't probably in this case. But next to this global, we have intercultural citizenship. Well, is that the same, or is it something else? I would now speak about, or refer to, responsible citizenship. It's a kind of a neologism also. What do I mean by that? I mean that when you look around yourself, not only that you don't litter, you know, you smoke and then just throw, or chewing gum, but you realize that you're not the only one in the world. That's A. And not only that you're not the only one, but that the others matter. The others are as important as you are. And you are not the most important, because what we usually have is people think that, well, it's only us. Okay, there are also the others, but they're not as important. We are important. I mean, we the successful, we the whatever. And the thing here in Lithuania, we have this kind of hype. Oh, we are in the elitist EU club. And whenever I say that we're a third world country, most of the people, especially from the ministries and other authorities, say, shh, no, don't do that. I remember when the first time I went to Afghanistan was in 2006, and we had this camp whiskey, like whiskey, could have been beer. Yeah, we had this camp whiskey where the Lithuanian military was stationed, and now it was a very nice camp. You have all sorts of facilities, things that, of course, an ordinary Afghani would never dream of. And we were the donor nation, so whenever we went to meet the people in the province, I would be advised by both Lithuanians and the others, don't ever tell who pays for that camp. It's the Americans, it's not us, not the Lithuanians. So, it's keeping up appearances. If you know this BBC series, it's like we pretend we are something. We're important, we're donors. But what's the Americans who pay our camp? Well, they paid for a while, and then I have to be fair and say that it was just only for a year and a half, the first year and a half. But the point here is that we often think that we are the only ones who are alone, or we think that we are the most important. And I think this is the wrong premise. This is the very wrong premise. And therefore, I would want to go into the field, very vast field, which actually came from the military, if you want, or military pre-deployment trainings. It's about cultural awareness. And I won't go into detail what cultural awareness is or what I mean by it, but just, for the sake of the argument, it's when you know something about the other cultures. And when I said the cultures, it's not about the presumed cultures. It's not about, whatever heritage or history, which is also probably important, but about how people really live on a daily level. When we talk about responsible citizenship, we talk about this some sort of level of cultural awareness. People need to know that there are these others and how these others are. But probably we could go even further, because when it comes to development cooperation, cultural awareness is probably not enough. And then some of the speakers referred to raising awareness or public mobilization. This is where cultural awareness would be enough. But when we go into the sector where you have people actually doing things, engaging in development cooperation, then cultural awareness would probably not be enough. You need cultural literacy, so it's one step higher, where you probably would also need language. I mean, it's funny when you have people who do development cooperation, and that could be in NGOs, but also could be public institutions and officials, and they don't know languages. And then Justinas has been to Afghanistan. He was there for a year. Were you there? Yeah, and then he knows, when the people from certain ministries or departments, and they are, wishing well, they do want to help the Afghanis, but they don't know languages, and then this, this lost in translation, and then he probably could verify this. There's an Afghani who speaks for 5 minutes in presumably Dari, and the translator says he welcomes you. It's like, just a second, he must have said something important in between. Everything's fine, and then you realize that if you don't know the language, all you have with you might just be, sort of smashed. But not necessarily, not always. I don't suggest it is. But cultural literacy, I would means much more than just simply knowing how many people live in a particular place or what their religion presumably is. So what are we talking about here? We're talking about education. We're talking about not simply, raising awareness through these sort of public events or press releases by the ministries and so on, which are probably okay. We do need them, or the ministries need that also. But it's really having citizens who have a clue about, where we are actually. And of course, Afghanistan would be the obvious case. And how many of us know anything about Afghanistan? Well, let's say on this cultural awareness level. In the province of Ruhr, it would always be argued by the academics, by the way, that the majority of people are IMAX. Justin has been there now. Who are IMAX? We only know that there are Pashto, Dari, speaking, and then Hazarajat people. So, but what are the IMAX? We don't know. And this is the funny thing. We have spent so much money to help the people whom we don't even recognize as such. IMAX, or maybe the academics are wrong and we should prove them wrong. So it's about education. It's about how to get to the, well, not exactly roots probably, but to the basis of, how people live, how people feel, what they expect, and so on. And why do we need this? Well, because I would argue that if development cooperation is about cooperation, one needs to know the partner, to know about him, because otherwise it doesn't make sense trying to help someone or cooperate with someone whom we don't recognize, whom we don't associate with or identify. And I don't necessarily mean that we have to, if you do development cooperation in a Muslim country, you need to become a Muslim, or only Muslims can do that. No, I don't imply that, but just have a clue as to, what you have there on the ground. That is, I think, very urgent. So that's the kind of what I think we need. And the question is, where is Lithuania on this? How much of this cultural awareness going into cultural literacy do we have? On the mass level, we would recognize immediately. We have no clue, just simply no clue. If I asked what are the neighboring countries of Afghanistan, and I think most of you would fail to name all of them. But it's only a natural thing. We are geographically illiterate. We're total ignoramuses when it comes. So you start with educational system, the school. What do they teach in school? I have a kid who's now in the 9th grade, and she's busy throughout the day. But she can't tell apart Iraq from Iran. If you remember Ali G episode there, what's the difference between Iran and Iraq? You look at very important books in Lithuania where they translate from some European language, where they put Libya and Lebanon in different positions. I mean, this is scandalous. But this is, kind of natural. Whatever, do we care? We do not care, and that's the problem. So starting with the high school level, probably, of course, primary, but I wouldn't go that far, there's virtually no education, intercultural, global, responsible, whatever, citizenship. There is no. Well, of course, you have on ad hoc basis, you have this bright teacher who probably speaks some other language than Lithuanian, who's read something, but might have not even traveled, who does try to do something. So, but in the end, what we have this layer of people who work at the institutions, public institutions, government institutions, who are charged with being responsible. And it's not about money, sort of distributing money. It's about something which is much more deeper. And then, of course, the people who use that money, if you want, who go with the projects. And my argument would be, and then I wonder whether this would go along, that so much money is lost unintentionally. I don't mean stolen, although that also probably happens, but is lost because we just don't know the expectations of the other side. And we try usually to impose our expectations on them. And they say, we don't really identify with that because we don't recognize that. And we say, but this is good for you. And this is the wrong normativism. Democracy is good for you, even if it sometimes sucks. It's okay, it's good. Why? It might not be good. Why is it good? Because it's good for us? I don't know. Is it really? So what we have here is that we are sort of working against the tide, and I will finish here, that when you go to the mass media level, mass media is the primary source for our cultural awareness, or cultural ignorance, I would put, because we are fed images, stereotypes, and so on. So when I get my students, they are adults already. They, have gone through the formal schooling, and then they have, watched TV, listened to radio, and so on. And so they have certain images of what that other part of the world, or those other parts of the world, are about. But usually it's so flawed, because they don't get any good education in this regard, and the mass media puts them in a certain perspective. So these are the people among us, these are the citizens, and some of them do engage in development cooperation. And I think it is, in this regard, scandalous that there's very little attention being paid to this. Now, I'm glad to say, and this will sound definitely as an ad, but I don't mind it, because I represent Vytautas Magnus University, and although it wasn't my idea, I wish I could identify with it or hold this ownership, but we have the program, BA program taught in English, which we initially wanted to be called International Development Studies. We don't like this cooperation part, but development, yes. So, but we were made to change into International Politics and Development Studies. And we do have this, and I'm glad that the Ministry of Foreign Affairs was, came forward and helped us with not only attracting foreign students to that program, because I said it's taught in English, but also covering their tuition fees and scholarships. And I appreciate that we have this kind of a cooperation. So in that regard, we do have an understanding, although, of course, it is sort of about foreign students rather other than Lithuanian students, but wouldn't expect the Ministry of Foreign Affairs to cover Lithuanian student scholarships. That would be something very interesting. But the point is, we do have this program, and I'm very glad we do have it now. I didn't realize before we started it, but now I think that this is so essential, and I'm glad that the students of the program, some of the students, of course, we have many more, but they're here today, and then I look forward to them engaging with the people, participants, and especially those who come from abroad, because it's a one-off chance for them. So the students are second-year students and they're very shy, but you shouldn't be shy, and I mean people from abroad, approach them, sort of engage, because it's their chance. And I think that could lead to many things, including this cultural awareness. And then in the future, I would see them as the ones who would not only engage in development cooperation, but would have this luggage of knowledge, not only theoretical, but this cultural luggage of knowledge. So I do really look forward, and I think these kind of events, these conferences are probably best suited for these young people, because we know each other. I knew what most of the people were going to say, and you knew what I was going to say, but it's for the students. So I appreciate the organizers allowing the students to come and participate, because they had to come from Kaunas. Thank you.
That was real quick. I mean, quick. Okay, we are far behind the schedule, but if you do not mind, I would still take some time from the lunch break for the questions, and I already see the raised hand, so please forward your question.
Thank you. It will be rather a comment, maybe not a question. To Professor Gdunas Račius, as a former student, I have to say that it's always nice to listen to him, and I always appreciate hearing him talking in a funny and provocative way about the very serious issues. So this was about education and its role in development cooperation, and it's hard to question this education's role in this area. But my thoughts were like this. I would say that decision making requires to have as much information as possible, and it's idyllic. It would be idyllic to have full information and to make the rightful, very best decisions. But I think that what you spoke about more is about the needs of these people, our partners we're working with, and it applies more to official development assistance. That's bilateral aid, so to say. But development cooperation is much more than that, and I think that it's about more and more about just and fair politics that we make here at home, and that's what development framework is going to, the post-2015 agenda especially. So I think that to emphasize the role of experts and expertise that much would be a bit endangering the other part of all the deal is about the choice to make fair and rightful decisions based on values and principles. And I think that it could complement, but in general, it would be about the understanding that the more just world would benefit us all. And I would call maybe to use this opportunity to talk more then how we as Lithuania or new member states, or even the older ones, where are we going and how? Because do we learn from the previous lessons, or do we go the same way, or do we discuss what was the right and wrong and what actually should be done in every way? So I think that this conference could also benefit from that. So thank you very much, Professor, for provoking.
You're absolutely right. I mean, it might have sounded that I put this as sort of the only important aspect or dimension, and far from. I only spoke probably about those who would be engaged in cooperation development pertaining to these faraway lands, and there's much more to that, definitely, and it has become, and many of the people have acknowledged, it's become about politics. It's sort of internal politics, and it's party politics even. So you're absolutely right, and I would never deny that dimension, and it is probably much more important. But I don't care about that particular more important dimension. What I care about is what sort of hurts me, and as an educator coming from the Middle Eastern studies, Islamic studies, I sort of see things my own way. But you're absolutely right, and I would never dare to deny that, not only as a constituent dimension, but as probably even more important dimension. So you're absolutely right on that.
Does anybody have any questions? Oh yeah, here we go.
Yeah, I totally agree that actually we need to know very well the culture of the people whom we are working with. But let's say doing the changes in the areas like gender equality or health issues and other areas, I would say that it's also the change. We also need to change the culture in a way, and. For example, like the fact that the women do not own the land where they farm in Africa, like most of the donors see it well as a negative way, as it is not really sustainable. And it always somehow it is the question how much we respect this culture and we sustain the status quo, and how much we need to change it. What would be your comments on that?
We probably could have another event on this because you're absolutely right. This is a crucial question. Remember, there's this joke: want to see foreign countries? Join the army, go to foreign countries, see interesting people, and kill them. That's supposedly a mock U.S. Army ad. So it's like, what do we do with these people? We simply know about them, appreciate the way they are, and what is then this development cooperation about? That they feel happy? You always have to ask yourself, what is the end state we want to attain? If we provide electricity to an Afghani village and they're happy because now they can have fun day and night, is this what we would be happy about? Or we add, as we say, conditions added. Well, then you let your kids, especially daughters, to school because we think that the girls' schooling is important. So yeah, you're absolutely right. It's not only about getting to know, but about what to do. And that's, this question is, I think that most of the Europeans would have, would feel that they have a moral obligation. Well, we have to help them, the destitute, the poor, the maybe backward, or whatever. But we probably would be sliding back into the Orientalist approach of the 19th century British and French, And I'm not sure I would myself support that. But you're absolutely right. What do we do with certain practices, like female genital mutilation and so on? Just let it be that way? But, it's a philosophical discussion. It's definitely very normative. Like, when a Muslim jurist comes to us and says, look, don't legalize abortions, don't legalize pot, like they have in the Netherlands, because it's immoral. We say, shut up, come on, we know what we do is, for us. But we'll tell you, don't do this to your girls, because it's bad. It's good for us, it's bad to you. How do you justify that? How do you justify homosexuality in Europe, and yet you say, well, it's bad that they have polygyny somewhere, in Kenya, as they have now, right? It's, I get your point, and it's, of course, very sort of contentious point. It depends on where one positions oneself. And I think, it's a political thing. Liberal parties would probably side with this, conservatives with that, and so on. So in that regard, this is a very, very important thing. Yes, it's not only to get to know them, which is, step A, but what do you do with that? Yes, you're absolutely right. And then, of course, there's a major question as to where we want to arrive at. I mean, if you remember, 10 years ago, we wanted to have democracy in Iraq and in Afghanistan, and just yesterday, Mosul fell to the insurgents. Democracy. We know there's no democracy, not even a mock democracy there. Now we will, is that Saturday when they vote for Abdullah? Hopefully Abdullah, not Ashraf Ghani, gets elected as a president. But we'll see what happens. If it's democracy, we'll be happy with that. So there are many sort of details to that puzzle. And as I said, absolutely, in that sort of, on a theoretical level, I do identify with this problem. On a practical level, how would I see it and how I would approach it? And I'm not a practitioner in cooperation development. I don't do that because I know I would fail, because I can't be someone who comes and tells people, how you should live. But people who think they can do that, they would do that. So, it's kind of a personal choice. But you're absolutely right. Yes, the problem is not only about getting to know the culture, but what you actually do with that culture. So, yes.
If I may, just one practical example for our, from my mission in Afghanistan, it's just, I think it suits very, 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 very well for this knowing of what we are doing or what the implications were. So it was one remote village, and we were asked to dig water well and something. Okay, our specialist, we went, we dig the water well, we put this water pump, and after a week, somebody came from village to say, oh, this water pump was broken, you need to fix it. Okay, we send something, they fix it. After 2 weeks, again, your water pump is not working, it's broken, please do something. Okay, they sent, in this case, I think our specialist. He came back and said, listen, I think we broke it intentionally. Why? We started thinking, and it was the third time. We fixed it, and it's broken again. And we started to ask and to the elders of this villages how it's possible, because you are broken it intentionally. It's not the broken because it's not good or something like that, and it's hard to broke it. It's from the solid steel. It's just broken. And finally, what was the case? The case was that the women of this village, they intentionally broke this pump, this water pump, because before the water well was about 1 kilometer or 1.5 kilometer away from the village. And it was every day that women from this village, they had an opportunity to go to this well all together to chat and to speak about this. After we built it in the middle of the village, we lost this opportunity because they can leave the house without any reason. So we are going to take the water, in some well. We came going back to the houses, and we're sitting all the day here. So we did some. Well, we think that we did a good thing, but to whom, all the women in this village, they were not very happy about that. So that's one of many that we have illustrative, examples. But sometimes we are doing what we think it's good, and it's not sometimes good to our part. So just.
That was a nice example. And please, you had a question, yes.
Thank you very much, Professor, for your contribution. There was two comments I'd like to make, and that one of them is that we have this expression in Ireland that says charity begins at home, and in a way, in order for us to be able to understand diversity and difference abroad, we need to be able to understand it here at home, and we need to understand how do we approach diversity here in our own home country before we can really start to begin to understand overseas. And that's one of the biggest problems we're facing in Europe. You look at the recent elections across the European Union, and you see the rise in nationalist parties and so forth. And again, that's probably coming from a lack of understanding of how political systems work and how we approach diversity and the benefits of it and so forth. So I think we can't really preach abroad until we start to really practice what we talk about at home. And the second thing really that I would say, my own organisation, we're quite a large development organisation working in 32 countries across Africa and Asia. And one of the things that you cannot put in a log frame or a results-based framework or put forward to donors for funding that is highly underestimated is the impact of just simply being in another culture, and the confidence that you can give to other people who are change makers within their culture to actually step forward and bring about change. A lot of the volunteers who go on our programs are simply to do that. They're there to train other people to do things in their own society. And they're not there to preach or tell or say this is how you should do it or what you should not do. They're actually there to listen. Okay, you want to do XYZ campaign in your society. Well, this is how you can go about it. And then it's up to the local person to decide how best to approach that. But it is the impact of just simply being there, being a sounding board, saying, these are some of the mistakes we made, these are some things we did, that gives confidence to people to step forward in their society. And that's how you start to bring about that cultural change. Not preaching, not telling, this is what you have to do, but just simply supporting people to be able to make the change that they want to make themselves.
I think both comments, or A and B of the comment, are good, and I would reply to the part B. Yes, you're absolutely right. And this methodological kind of level engagement, where you tell the people, well, look, we had this phase of transition or whatever, and then we engaged in it, or we did this, and well, we're happy or we're not happy. You take it or leave it. You decide. We don't tell you whether you need to apply. And we did that actually the second time I went to Afghanistan. It was when Stinas was there, so I met him there. We did go with one NGO, a Lithuanian NGO, and most of the people would have no clue about Afghani culture, and I was the one supposedly who sort of knew the culture. And but we did this training, and you're absolutely right. We didn't tell them what to do or how to do, but we told them what we would have done in their place or what we actually did. So yeah, it's an absolutely valid thing. So once again, it's not only about getting to know the culture and telling them how to act. No, of course not. So in this regard, you're right. Whereas when it comes back home about knowing diversity, I think Lithuania's position is somewhat, I won't emphasize, somewhat unique, because we do have certain diversity, but we don't have any problems with that particular subcultural diversity that comes from history. I mean, we have had our ethnic confessional communities, like the Karaites. Most of the people would not know who the Karaites are, even Lithuanians, but we don't have any trouble with that. Whereas when it comes to the new diversity brought by new arrivals, I don't want to call them immigrants, but probably this is the word, we don't have those people. So there's no diversity. We'd be pressed hard to find a Kurd in Lithuania, never mind a Berber. So we don't really have that diversity. So I think in the Irish case, or in most of the European countries, people like you need to find someone from a particular ethno-confessional community somewhere in the world. You probably find those. Whereas here in Lithuania, and I don't know whether you have had the chance to walk on a street, you don't really see people of, and I don't like this, but different color or different dress or whatever. So in this regard, I think we are still somewhat behind, and this sort of diversity at home part will definitely come, and I hope that we get ready before it comes. So we sort of, even if on the sort of theoretical level, start getting acquainted to that. So, and I don't think I need to go into this, but I used to teach at the priest seminary, and I was so glad that the Lithuanian Catholic priests would know something about Islam, because it's not a reality yet, but it will be. So they will have to deal with it, and then this diversity kind of thing will be very essential. So it's not probably that much about development cooperation, teaching priests. Maybe, is it? No? But you're absolutely right. So we do have to do that, and I think in the modest capacity that we have, we do that. Well, I don't know, with the varying results, I would put it this way. But yeah, you're absolutely right.
So let's take the last final question here, because I know that there are a lot of people who would like to ask, but let's use the lunch break for that. Yes, otherwise, some people would like to talk and talk and talk. Other people might... No, I'm just talking about people in general. All right, so the last final question.
Okay, thank you. I'll just take a minute. It's more a comment than a question. I come from Portugal. Thank you for the invitation. I'll be on the workshop in the afternoon with Mrs. Zenaida around global education. I just wanted to say two things. So I come from Portugal, and I have a positive view. I just met Lithuanian Development Cooperation and Global Education officers here, and people from the platform and from Litea. And I have two positive things that I would like to leave. One thing is that all these people that I met here on the last 1.5 days brings me that you are, and the comment from Litea, from Julius Norvila, you have now people that are trained and that have built some value and some knowledge around these thematics. And that is a very valuable thing. So as Julius was saying, it's a very valuable thing. So now you must find inventive ways how to finance and how to be able to pay and to invest this knowledge of people, these new human resources that you didn't have before, and apply them in development cooperation and global education. That is one thing, and it's a good value, it's a positive thing. The other thing that I saw, and it's very, very valuable, is that decision makers, so it's very good that the member of SEMAS was here, Mrs. Maria, and it's very good that the Ministry of Foreign Affairs is here, so Mr. Bakunas. And this is very valuable too. In Portugal, it took us a long time to be able to engage politicians and decision makers on these processes. And there was one thing that Mrs. Maria, sorry with the names, Pavilionenia, said that she asked the audience, how can we contribute to this? How can the society contribute to this? And this connects with this idea of the cultural relations and the education that is essential for this. And one thing is that a dialogue must be built, and decision makers are one of the most important actors, and you, NGOs, platforms, were able to commit them and ask them and invite them and involve them. And that is very good. It's high value thing that you have here now. And there's a lot of things to do. There's a lot of work to do. For example, as I'm on global education, I know that you are working and that there was a multi-stakeholder meeting around global education. What is going to be, we'll have regulation and a definition and everything. So things, very good things are happening here. So it's very good. I just want to tell you, you are in a good way, and please work and continue this for the further years, because it's very good. Okay, so we had, for example, our national strategy on development education started as this. We were able to sit down, the Ministry of Foreign Affairs and Education, and a lot of institutions around, and civil society organizations, and that dialogue is essential. Okay, so please keep on going.
All right, I guess we just all agree that we really thank your comment and appreciate it. Yeah, and that we Lithuanians usually think that we are not good at some things, that we could always do better, and we look at our neighbors and think that people are doing better in other countries in probably most of the fields, right? But so it's always nice to hear that, yeah, you guys doing great. So I hope that you all guys truly believe that we are on the right track. And now we are on the way to the lunch break. And just a few more messages. Let's find a compromise, and let's come back at 1:15. So we shorten the lunch break, but then we do not go way too long into the working groups. And after the lunch, you will have the opportunity to choose which working group you would like to participate in. They are Central European NGOs cooperation, involvement of private and public sector, and global citizenship. So during lunch break, please make up your mind where you want to be after lunch. And I was told that you will see the signs in the cafeteria where to go if you choose one or another working group. So enjoy lunch.